There is also a limited supply of Japanese who want to work in an international environment, and that number is declining rapidly as less and less young people go overseas to study. We're currently in the midst of a real turning point regarding the internationalisation of the younger generation. The young don't want to learn English and they don't want to live overseas because everything is so wonderful here in Japan and it is safe. In the future, they're going to become almost impossible to hire for SMEs as we are simply outbid by bigger companies. Konnichiwa and welcome to the Leadership Japan series, and I'm your host in Tokyo, Dr. Greg Story, President of Dale Carnegie Training Japan. And much more importantly, you are a student of leadership, highly motivated to be the best in your business field. Today's show is brought to you by the Sales Advantage course. We take you through the complete sales cycle: rapport, interest, solutions, objections, closing. Once you have this training, you are in control of every sales interaction. If you have a performance or people challenge in Japan, then maybe we can help you. Contact me at greg.story, that's greg.story, S-T-O-R-Y, at dalecarnegie.com. How would you like your own access to 104 years of the accumulated wisdom of Dale Carnegie Training? Get our free white papers, guidebooks, reports, training videos, blogs, newsletters, course information, plus much more over at japan.dalecarnegie.com. Before we get going, today our handy Japanese phrase is, probably at this time of the year, only useful in the southern hemisphere because we're in autumn winter up here in the northern hemisphere, but mushi atsui desu ne. Mushi atsui desu ne. It's humid, isn't it? Mushi atsui desu ne. It's quite hot and humid, isn't it? Mushi atsui desu ne. It's so humid. Mushi atsui desu ne. And if you've spent any time in Tokyo, particularly in the summer, it definitely gets very mushi atsui desu ne right here. This is episode number 176. Today we are talking about running a foreign business in Japan. Well, running your own business is challenging anywhere, but Japan adds a little bit of spice to the broth. According to official statistics, 70% of Japanese companies are unprofitable. Business seems pretty simple at one level: constantly seek to increase revenues and reduce or hold down costs. To increase revenues, you can find more customers, more repeater customers, and raise prices. Raising prices in Japan gets tough when you're in the churning wash of decades of deflation and when there are always lots and lots of competitors. When the consumption tax was raised previously, the economy immediately plunged into recession, which indicates the price sensitivity of the populace. The Abe Cabinet blinked and gave up on the last scheduled increase out of the fear of the consequences. The usual way of differentiating yourself and justifying higher prices is through the added value you provide. Naturally, there is a major sales and marketing effort required to get that value message out. Both options in Japan, however, come with high price tags. By the way, whenever we do training as part of a global arrangement, we always get pushback on the pricing in Japan, especially when the yen is converted to other currencies. Abenomics is not helping much at the moment with the rapid strengthening of the yen. Why overseas head office staff would imagine the pricing here should be the same as at home is a mystery, but that is often the expectation. The cost structures here in Tokyo for wages and rents are high relative to other countries, and the prices reflect that. Downtown Tokyo office space rents per square metre in a reasonable location will fall in the 9,000 Japanese yen to, say, 14,000 range, which is about US 90 to about US 140. I refer these global partners back to their own local operations wage and rent bills in Tokyo, I point out these are nothing like what they are costing at home, so why expect global pricing to be uniform? In general, fixed costs as a percentage of revenue are high in Tokyo, and it is a struggle to get them down. Unlike other Western countries where salespeople are prepared to work on a 100% commission basis, very few Japanese staff are attracted by that option. Again, this opportunity to move wage costs away from fixed to variable is less available here. This means that there must be a base salary plus bonus or commission arrangement, and the base will be relatively high, especially if you are a foreign operation, as you need to attract potential employees. When we were a startup in 2007, we had to pay our sales staff close to double the norm to get them to work for us. That hurt, but we had no choice. By the way, add another 15% to your wages bill for all the various social insurance and pension costs. Of course, if you are a prestigious mega corporation encapsulated by a powerful brand, this attracts staff, and so the challenge may not be such an issue. If you're a SME, a small medium enterprise, then attracting people becomes more competitive. If your team needs to speak some reasonable level of English, then the wage bill goes up immediately. As an illustration, a competent English-speaking executive assistant in Tokyo would earn around 7 to 8 million yen per year, which is around 70,000 to 80,000 US per annum. There's also a limited supply of Japanese who want to work in an international environment, and that number is declining rapidly as less and less young people go overseas to study. We are currently in the midst of a real turning point regarding the internationalization of the younger generation. The young don't want to learn English, and they don't want to live overseas because everything is so wonderful here in Japan and it is safe. In the future, they're going to become almost impossible to hire for SMEs as we are simply outbid by bigger companies. Marketing in Japan, especially in Tokyo, is a remorseless pit into which you have to throw lots of money. Print ads and content marketing driven advertorial are very expensive here, and the local publishers have plenty of Japanese companies able and willing to pay. So, trying to cut a deal is fraught. Television predominates with 15-second ads, so even if you can afford the big money involved, your appeal to buyers and that time is microscopic. Online banner ads are not inexpensive. Pay-per-click keyword search ads and Facebook ads are also not cheap and can burn through cash at an alarming rate. Few Japanese are using LinkedIn as yet, so it is mainly targeting a foreign audience at this point. PR is a viable option for brand awareness, but you get what you pay for. SMEs can really pony up the type of money required to get the PR agency's A-team. So don't expect any particular marketing magic from the D-team. Japanese websites are often the complete antithesis of the Zen-like Western approach. Garish colours and packed screen real estate are very common here. So what do? Go Zen or go garish? Do you have the cash to pay for a Japanese language copywriter, or do you do it internally to save money? Are your team members any good at it? Your SEO, search engine optimization, has to be finely tuned to push yourself forward in the page rankings, and you need people who know what they are doing, as DIY is cheaper but a lot harder. These resources may be in-house or on contract, but they still push up the wages bill. Networking in Japan is different to Western countries in that few Japanese go to these events all that willing to meet new people. Sound promising? The meeting charges are also expensive as well, between say 50 and 80 US. So if your team are really getting out there, the cost can be significant for what is really a shotgun marketing effort. Sounds crazy. The usual style is that someone you know introduces you to someone they know. This is acceptable, if quite limited in scope. Bounding up to complete strangers and introducing yourself is possible, but the reactions are often mild shock, blank stares, and some resistance. This negative response is applied to Japanese as well as foreign staff. Working the room hasn't quite made it here yet as a concept. Cold as opposed to warm approaches are also tricky. Sending a direct mail piece to someone unknown goes straight in the bin. Any email from an unknown entity similarly gets deleted unread. You can cold call here, but you really need to know the person's name. If you don't, you will usually get blocked at the entry point, promised that your message will get passed on, and a return call offered, if they are interested. You will never hear back from them. There is always the issue of what you are offering may work overseas, but it won't work here. If you bring global statistics, then there had better be a Japanese component of the survey, or the whole thing is just dismissed as irrelevant. That means you have to pay to run the same survey here to show the significance of your findings for the Japanese market. This costs money. Testimonials from overseas companies, super brands or otherwise, are also invalid by definition. You need a local track record to be credible, and skepticism reigns without relief. Natural disasters, especially earthquakes, are a constant prospect, and all of us living in Tokyo know that we are overdue for the big one. After the triple whammy of earthquake, tsunami and nuclear core meltdown in Fukushima a few years ago, our training business ground to a halt with 4 months of no cash flow. Who wants to do training when you are having large numbers of major aftershocks every single day for months? We all know it is important, but it is at moments like these we really understand the importance of cash flow in a business. This was a painful period for many businesses to get enough cash to keep going, and in fact, many disappeared as a direct result. The good news is that in Japan you do get paid by clients. Also, Japanese companies prefer the devil they know, so if you supply value, then you can expect repeat business. Sales staff are hardworking and diligent. People are honest, neat, polite, and things work here. Also, there is fantastic infrastructure. There are large numbers of foreign corporates with businesses here who are more open than a lot of domestic companies to your approach. There are English language magazines aimed at these expatriate leaders, which, because of the limited market, cost a fraction of the Japanese mainstream media. There are many foreign chambers of commerce, business associations and study groups here, so there are many networking opportunities where you can actually work the room. The rule of law applies here, and legal disputes that have to go to court are few and far between. Like anywhere, there are criminal gangs, yakuza, extorting businesses, but they tend to leave foreigners alone and prefer exploiting the locals, as it is a lot easier. Because of Japan's extremely strict immigration and refugee policies, there are very few ethnic or religious groups who are likely to cause Japan much trouble. The biggest non-Japanese ethnic group are Koreans. The majority were born here after the war, their grandparents being brought here during the war years as forced labour. There are some foreigners here illegally overstaying their visas, but they are keeping a very low profile because the Japanese government deports them once found. Japan is still the third largest economy in the world. The main leisure activities here really, for the majority of the populace, is to shop and eat. Many foreign companies have done well here. They have found the formula for success, but few have done that rapidly. Long-term planning, patience, grit, and sustainability take on a different dimension here in Japan. All in all, Japan is a land of opportunity. Progress just comes more slowly here and with great difficulty, but If you stick it out, then it will come. There are plenty of foreigners who have made a success of their businesses here. Adopt some samurai-style grit and keep going. Thank you for joining the Leadership Japan series, and we hope you enjoyed today's show, brought to you by the Sales Advantage course. As mentioned, if you have a performance or people challenge in Japan, then maybe we can help you. Contact me at greg.story, greg.story, S-T-O-R-Y, at dalecarnegie.com. Also, remember to access your Dale Carnegie training, free reports, white papers, guidebooks, training videos, blogs, newsletters, course information, plus so much more over at japan.dalecarnegie.com.